Hey everyone, welcome back to the Teach Yourself podcast. Nathan here, excited with our new guest today. Got ourselves a content creator from Nashville, Tennessee. If I'm not mistaken, originally from Chattanooga. We got
Yes.
Marcus Knight on here with us today. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan.
Excited to be here with you. At least currently, I just like to kind of start off and get to know you a little bit more and ask more about your story. Obviously, we don't know each other super well. So just tell me a little bit about yourself, Marcus. What's your story? How have you gotten to where you're at today?
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Marcus. I am a current content creator and marketer here in Nashville. I started as a little middle class black boy in Nashville, or in Chattanooga rather, for most of my childhood. And I really enjoyed all the creative things. If it was creative, I did it. So singing, dancing, acting, producing, hosting, all the things. I grew up in a Christian household. We really enjoyed the values of spending time together as a family, but then also being a blessing to other people and really developing yourself as a person, as a well-rounded person. We were a family that really valued intelligence and education. We valued getting deep into our cultures. We valued having routines and being able to achieve great things. And the goal is that we leave a legacy for people who are after us. And that's what kind of brought me to Nashville actually in 2018. I came here, went to college at Belmont University, graduated with a music business degree, even though I toured as a musical theater major. And so there's a little bit of a switch there. But I'm so glad. I'm happy about all the things and the decisions that I've been able to make over the past handful of years. And now I'm here living it up in Nashville, got my main character lifestyle. And now we're just trying to see what the next step is.
That's awesome. I love that. Those are some awesome experiences. I've myself have never been to Tennessee. My wife lived there for a few months a couple summers ago. She was doing a
Okay.
research internship at UT. She loved it there. And she's always like, "We got to go back
Yeah.
and visit." I'm like, "You were only there for 3 months. It must be like it's got to be that good."
Listen, come on back.
So I'm excited to head out there and visit someday and just embrace the Tennessee culture because I can tell it's strong and it's definitely flowing through you.
Yeah.
So I was kind of exploring your YouTube page earlier today and kind of looking at some of the things you got on there. And on one of your episodes, it might have been on your Instagram, but you were just talking about you just recently, I think, started a new job as kind of in the digital marketing space with your digital marketing agency. Tell me a little bit more about that and what got you into that.
Yeah, so I think one of the through lines of my life, looking at the 20 plus years I've been alive now, has been storytelling. I think even from a very young age, I was writing short stories all the time. I was acting in musicals and plays. I was teaching at like my local church back in Chattanooga. I always enjoyed the idea of telling stories. And of course, that manifests itself in different ways. But throughout specifically the 2020 and 2021 years, I saw that there was a need for people to really bring a sense of humanity back in all of the things that we were doing as a society because so many things were dividing and separating. And I knew that as a young black Gen Z Christian male, I had a very specific narrative and perspective that I could offer to people my age, older than me, younger than me. And I also knew the power of uplifting other brands and other stories and other companies and other organizations that were doing amazing things. And so slowly but surely, I went into the digital marketing space, knowing that the online space, the media space is really it's what controls everything now. Everybody gets their news, they get their recipes, they get their fashion sense, they get their comedy, they get everything online. And of course, it's in the power of the people that use it with regards to how people interact and respond to it. And so I figured, why not go into that space and put some joy in there and put some information in there and put some advocacy in there. And so now that's what I really am leaning towards is how can I use this digital space that I grew up in, that a lot of our generations grew up in, and use it for good, use it for lasting change in the future.
I love that. I love that. There's definitely there's that upward trend where where people like you, they're noticing that we can be a positive force on here, just like all of the great people through history have been, but we can reach even further because
Yeah.
of the digital platform that we have, and we can make such a huge impact. So I love that. That's awesome, and I think that's spectacular. And I can tell that you're going to do some great things with your career now in digital marketing. What's kind of like your day to day on the job look like?
Yeah, so the agency work is very different than a lot of other industries. And some important context here, after I graduated from Belmont with my bachelor's degree, I actually got an amazing opportunity to do a 1 year fellowship with
Okay.
Belmont, specifically for recent alumni that have graduated. And it's all about this area of leadership development, professional development, with a target on higher education. And so we learned about how we create really stories and pathways for students to thrive. How do we really engage the oncoming trends of AI and non traditional 4 year degrees? We talked a lot about different leadership styles. We talked a lot about team building and a lot of different aspirational versus operational type of balances to work with within the crazy ever changing higher education space. The point for that is it tends to have very slow seasons, and there's a lot of seasons. Of course, there's like recruitment that you have to do, there's marketing that you have to do, there's fundraising and all these things that you have to do, but there's a lot of slow seasons in the midst of all these things that you have to do. And then going straight from that to a digital marketing agency, specifically an agency that is specified in the entertainment space. Literally anything can happen any day at any time. And you have to be weeks and weeks ahead. And so the shift from that, from a slow season every couple of months, every couple of weeks, to literally having to stay like 4 weeks ahead on every single piece of content because you never know what's going to happen. Somebody might announce a tour, somebody might drop a new single, somebody might get met here. Like, there is such a stark difference. But again, I think each day has been different, each day has been unique. But again, I love the idea of being able to really live out the journey of so many amazing clients in real time.
I think that's super cool. And I think, it's almost vital that you got that, kind of slow experience. You like kind of built
Yeah,
up that foundation, got those roots going. So then, you get thrown into the fire a little bit and you're like, okay, like I've done this before. I've never done it quite
exactly.
this fast, but I've done this before. We can still do it. We can get it done. I think that's awesome. What are some of like the cool projects? I don't know if can name like specific people or brands or whatever, and as far as you can go, I'd love to hear about it. But what are some of the things that like have made you excited, or like excited projects that you've gotten to work on? Be like, man, like never would have dreamed I'd be working with this people or these
Yeah.
people or this brand, something like that.
I will say there's a good variety of clients that we've worked with. I mean, I love music already, and so being able to be in that space is really special to me. We've been able to work with some really big contemporary Christian artists. We've been able to work with race car drivers. We've worked with Olympic swimmers. We've worked with podcasting networks. Like, it literally is crazy amalgamation of all sorts of different types of people and brands. And I am hoping to work with a lot of different other types of people as I move on. I know that as a Gen Zer, I'm one of those people that loves to do 10,000 things at once. I want to be multifaceted, multi-dimensional. And so my goal right now is to move to another position in another company, or to do so many other things and really diversify my skill set, because I know that in the end, when I want to become a C suite, or if I want to do something like that in the future, it's going to help me and it's going to be to my advantage to have such a variety of knowledge and just a wealth of wisdom. And so I'm just right now, I'm really, really excited for just like all the different things that I hope to experience, especially now that I'm in my mid 20s. I feel like right now is kind of like the prime time to kind of jump around and do a little bit of everything. Not to say that the agency life is horrible or anything, but I'm that person. I want to do all the things and meet all the people and make all the connections. And so I'm really excited about it.
Definitely. I mean, those are just, crazy opportunities to be around those kinds of people,
Yeah,
that caliber. I mean, when you're just around a high performer in any field, whatever it is, you learn so much from just their mentality and the way that they do things, because it just applies to everything.
exactly.
And so as you've been kind of in that high performance area, working with people and being part of producing that content, how has it impacted you and affected the way that you do things personally, both, just in your regular life and also in the content that you produce for yourself?
Yeah, I number one, I think that there is a operational side of it that I have really yet to dig deep into. If anybody knows me, I am like the ideator. I am the big thinker, the big picture guy. Give me like a huge whiteboard and I'm just gonna draw all over it with diagrams and such. I'm like that aspirational dreamer, visionary kind of guy. And that's great when you're dealing with creatives and things of that nature. But then there's like the part where you actually have to put it into practice, and that can be kind of hard sometimes. And so I think one of the things that I've really learned from agency life is that you really have to lean as much, if not more, in the operational than you do in the aspirational. Because what good is the dream, is the vision, if you don't have a plan and a process to actually put it into place? And so I really have dug deep into that. And I think that's going to be something that I'm still going to have to like work on as life goes on. I've really been able to learn from some people who have really mastered the craft of making habits and processes that work, that scale things quickly and well, and that really make strategic connections along the way. Whether that's having content calendars for things, or whether that's, really dissecting analytics in a different way for socials, or if that means editing in a certain way, or really leaning into search engine like optimization and things of that nature. There's so many just like nitty gritty things that you can really like lean into that I don't think a lot of people realize. I think people hear content creator or influencer and they just think that I'm getting a whole bunch of free packages in the mail and just like showing off my stuff to like TikTok users. But it's so much more than that. It's literally telling the narrative of a brand, of a person, of an organization, and making sure that people understand it in a creative but also easy way, and to get people to go to websites and buy products and go to conferences and subscribe to networks and all these things. It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just to echo that, there's, you say like, oh, I'm a content creator or digital marketer, and everyone's like, oh, so you just post videos on Instagram, TikTok. It's like, that's like, yes, that's what you see, but
Right.
like, you're not back there seeing like all that script writing, like all these
Exactly.
captions that are being like, ultra thought out to, get it in front of the person that I want to see it, make it in
Exactly.
such a way that I'm going to make them act in the way that I want them to. I mean, the reality, it's really just like, it's the art of persuasion
Exactly.
without ever having to like physically interact with somebody. And I think, like you said, there's all those little things that go into it, each one individually powerful. Being able to, have a little bit of skill, all of them, is also powerful. There's just, like you say, so much one can learn and one can do with all those things. I think you're saying, you're the ideator, and you're getting all the things out. I'm kind of the side of like, if someone's like, hey, like, I want to do this, I'm the person that's like, okay, like, let's go make that happen. But if you're
Yeah.
like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are your ideas on this? I'm like, I got nothing. It's
And
like, you
that's
give me the
okay.
dream, you give me
That
the
is
dream,
okay.
I'll make it come true. But like, what are my dreams? Like, I got dreams, but you put me on the spot. Zero.
And to be honest with you, I think another thing that I just thought of when you're talking about that is I've had the blessing and the honor over the past couple of years to do a lot more speaking and a lot more, I guess, speeches and engagements like that. I've been able to do TED Talks. I've been able to do high school graduations. I've been able to do all sorts of amazing things. And there's a certain power in being able to articulate the visions and the dreams that you have. I recently uploaded a video not too long ago to YouTube about being a young person with big visions and kind of the stress that comes with that, because a lot of younger people nowadays are not thinking that way, just because no fault to them, but just based on how they were raised. They were brought up to think that you can only kind of stay in this lane or do this, or this is the path that you need to take. And so being able to really lean into what makes me different, what makes me unique when I enter into these spaces, when I talk to a graduating senior going off to college, or when I talk to a business owner that's trying to get their product off the ground. Like there's so many different types of people in this world, but one of the things that connects us together is that we're always trying to articulate and put words to what we already know to be true. And so I think kind of the middle ground of that big ideation phase and that big operational phase is really just being able to articulate what it is that you love to do and why you love to do it.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. I think, yeah, that, and you know, that's a lot of the purpose of this podcast for me is, you know, articulating the things that we're learning and experiencing on the regular, big and small, so that other people can come in here and listen to the things that are being shared and be like, hey, like, you know, he was older than I am, but he went through like the same thing. Like, let me
Yeah.
try that. Like, he learned this, like, because he did that. Let me try that, see if it works. It might not, but I think, like you said, being able to articulate that, you know, just meshes that, you know, ideation, that operation, and just makes it that one cohesive whole.
Yeah.
And what you're just sharing, it kind of brings me to the next thing I wanted to ask you about, kind of your YouTube channel and just kind of the different things on there. I saw you're kind of starting up a series, the How to Adult series, and I love the
Yeah.
title, and I was kind of clicking through those couple episodes in there because I think, I don't know, for me, I'm about to graduate from college, and so I'm just kind of getting into all these things. And my wife and I
Yay.
just moved to Boise. We're in Idaho from our college town, so I'm finishing up online. But like
That's
we like
awesome.
moved into like our first like full blown apartment. We're like going through all the things. I'm like, I just had no idea. Like all this is like I had to do it, and I'm like, it makes
Yeah.
sense, but I just had no idea. So tell me about your inspiration for that little series that you're putting together, just why
Yeah.
you're doing it for you.
I love that. This is the first time I'm actually talking about the inspiration behind the series, which is so fun. I think initially I did it because a lot of the things that I've seen on social media, on YouTube, are usually from people who have gone through the things and then they're giving advice to other people about it, which is great. I literally, when I went to college my freshman year, my entire subscription feed was filled with just other graduating seniors that were telling me like 10 things I learned in my freshman year at so and so. And I loved it. I binge watched it like it was my new favorite TV show. But I realized quickly that there weren't many people actually filming the process of going through it and actually giving real time tips and tricks. And for me, I've always been a rather dependent person. I've always had the kind of safety net of my family, of my friends, of my church to really kind of lead me and guide me through things. And so as I'm really stepping out on my own, I'm technically moving to a new city. I'm getting my first apartment. I'm living by myself. I'm getting my first big boy job. Like all of these different things, there's so many nuances that you have to navigate through that. And it's not just the paying rent and bills. Honestly, that actually might be the more simpler parts of adulting. I would argue that maintaining friendships as they change and as they grow, or as they might even fade away, I think that's a really, really nuanced and very specific part that you always have to keep going with. If you're a spiritual person and you practice a religion or faith, being able to tap into that in a very unique way, finding your different communities that you engage with, building legacy for yourself, not just, you know, living in your apartment and just kind of going day to day, but what are you doing to actually build your life and build your wealth and build your influence and build your business and build your credit and build all these different things. It's really like more than you now. It's not just you in your own little world. And so I think that was kind of the inspiration for me to do it. And I knew that there would be a lot of firsts for me. And I just wanted to take people along the ride. I had done college content for the past, what, 5 years, I think. And so people only knew me as, hey, that kid is in college in Nashville, and that's it. And so now it's almost like a brand refresh, if you will, trying to pivot and say, okay, now is the time where we actually like start doing the adult thing and taking this a lot more seriously. So yeah.
I think it's super cool, and I totally agree with you. There's like a beauty in seeing people go through things as they experience it, like seeing the struggle. And I think a lot of it's because just like how each of us wishes we were doing the same thing. It's like
Exactly.
we wish we had the confidence to be like watch my imperfections just play out in front of you. Because I
Yeah.
know like for me that's like terrifying to like show something like incomplete and some failure. I'm just like don't look at me. And so I think that's awesome, and I think that's a wonderful thing to keep sharing. So just power to you as you continue through that, and I hope that it can inspire a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of thinking over some of the other things. I was scrolling through your Instagram feed, and something that caught my attention that I loved,
Yeah.
that you were sharing on there. There are just like a lot of educational posts about like Black History Month,
Yeah.
and standing for that and all those things. Share a little bit more about that for me. So I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Southeast Washington. I now live in Idaho. There isn't a whole lot of Black community out here. We
Yeah.
don't get a lot of exposure to it, and I think in some ways it's not super helpful to us because then we go other places across the country and it's just like whoa. And
Yeah.
so it can just be a lot to take in. So just kind of dive into why that's obviously important for you.
Yeah. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, I think anybody that is aware in the United States knows that there is a very interesting duality that we live with, that there is this sense of freedom and opportunity and just really possibility for anybody to build the life that they want in the United States. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be an American and to be part of that amazing, really history of people just really shattering glass ceilings and really making a name for themselves. And, however, comma, I also know that there is a tension between people who are not the same as us. There's always going to be some sort of hesitancy or maybe even apprehension towards people who don't look, sing, talk, serve, love like us. Like there's always going to be something that you have to overcome and kind of get past, if that makes sense. And growing up, my dad specifically, both my parents, but specifically my dad, he was very, very big on me being aware of my culture, of really being integrated into that. And so he was bringing me to, Martin Luther King Day marches every single year. It was like a tradition. We would go to rallies and protests and things of that nature. Even as a child, I mean, I was watching documentaries on social justice and things of that nature as a child, like before I could even really articulate or understand any of those things. But I knew that he wanted me to A, have a grasp on history and where I came from. And number two, make sure that the things that I built and connected with in my future would prove to be greater than what had happened in the past. And I think that's the goal for really anybody, to kind of leave something better than you found it. And so I take it very seriously. I've been in private white institutions for college and high school and middle school. I've been in majority white spaces for most of my life. I grew up kind of adjacent to the suburbs. And so we were in a middle class family that got everything we wanted for Christmas, but we definitely didn't have everything all the time. And so I knew that growing up in these intricate and unique spaces, I had a perspective that was probably different from every other young Black kid in America, even though a lot of our experiences are still the same. I remember specifically going to a history museum. It was actually the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, where MLK unfortunately got assassinated at. And me and a whole group of people from our university were going there to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. And I remember in my very casual outfit, because we were on a field trip, I distinctly remember an older gentleman coming past me while we were looking at a certain exhibit. And he asked me, "Can you help me find this, or that?" And I was, wanting to be helpful, wanting to be nice, and things of that nature. And then he made it very clear, very fast, that he believed that I worked there, that I worked at the museum, and that obviously because I was a person of color, because I was a Black man, that was like my go-to, I guess, position at that museum. And it's the little things like that. It's never the hate crimes. It's never the big capital R racism that people talk about every single day that I've experienced. But it's the little microaggressions, it's the little everyday acts of I see you as this and not as that that really prompt me to educate people on things that they might not even know about. And I believe that when we, going back to the storytelling piece, I believe that a lot of the division and a lot of the hatred and anger that we experience in our world is because somebody chose to tell a particular story about somebody else, about if they were greater than or less than or equal to somebody or something else. And so my thing is, once you tell the whole story, and once you really lean into the humanity of other people, all these things slowly fade away. All the legislation follows behind, all of the little things that you do to interact with people each day, they kind of follow suit as well. But you kind of have to get the humanity back. You kind of have to have the core values and that standard kind of set at the beginning. And so that's what I hope to do with the content that I create, the things that I talk about, the advocacy that I want to, promote as a Gen Z person that wants to create change in the world. I'm hoping that we kind of get back to that original intent.
I think that's awesome, and thank you for sharing that story and being open with that. That's amazing. I think it kind of connects back a little bit to what you're saying. I think for me, as I've seen, like how can I be a part of the positive change? How can I embrace the differences in a positive way? I think it's just that being willing to try like
Yeah,
with real intent and not be worried about like the mistakes, but like
exactly.
be open to like, hey, like actually like this is a little bit better than that, or like hey, like that was great, here's this, learn from that. And I think so, kind of like what you're kind of showing on your YouTube of how to adult, I think it's just like, how can we all work together? How can we embrace each other's cultures, embrace each other's lives, and value for each other, what's important to us? That's the things that I've kind of developed, and that's just from different experiences.
Yeah.
Like I lived in Central America for a year,
Oh,
in El
wow.
Salvador, and so I was the minority group there, and it's just like it's different because everyone's just like no one cares that you're there. They're just like you gotta figure it out. But
Exactly.
they so wholeheartedly appreciated when you imperfectly try to embrace everything that they do and be
Yeah.
part of what they do. And so I think you can do that both ways. You can do that if you're a minority group, you can do that if you're the majority, but just trying to learn everything about one another with real intent and with love. And I think it just meshes together so much better.
Yeah, and I think that there is definitely there's an aspect of risk involved. I think you never can really get a return on anything that you haven't invested in.
Yeah.
And when people talk about the things that you have to do in order to quote unquote make big change in the world, a lot of people think that you have to be the president of the United States to make change. And that's not necessarily true. What it really means is taking risk and taking calculated risk, of course, but in your everyday lives and the communities that you occupy, in the circles that you're a part of, like what can I do from day to day in my church, in my neighborhood, in my family, in my school? Like, what can I do to really expand the mission and vision of whatever I'm a part of? And then once you do that, once you lean into your gifts and your talents in practical ways to help that, the byproduct naturally is that space gets better, you get better, the people around you get better, and there's a new wave of purpose and joy that lives in those spaces. And so I think that's kind of where we need to focus right now.
I love that. I love that. Thank you again for sharing all those things, and those are powerful. Yeah, I really hope people listen to this entire podcast because you shared so many great things in so many different places, and I think there's a lot of value here. Do you have any last thoughts, Marcus, as we kind of close out?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is, I mean, I don't know who's listening or watching or what have you for this podcast, but a lot of times we can kind of get into that imposter syndrome. Like, we are just not meant to do this or be that or connect with this person or build this thing. But there's a reason. There's a reason why we have the talents and the gifts that we've been given. And it really only takes us, ourselves, to know that. And a lot of times people will not understand that. And that is okay. because it wasn't meant for them anyways. And so just let your work speak for you, whatever it might be, whether it be in tech or creativity, in leadership, in politics, whatever it is, let your work speak for you. And I guarantee you that along the way, you'll find that there are very strategic connections that will be made based on the work that you're putting in. And you'll be surprised looking back at how much you accomplish.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's perfectly said. And Marcus, for any of my listeners that want to come and find you and see the things that you're doing, where is the best place that they can find you and look you up?
Yes, I am literally always on social media. That is literally my job. And so you can follow me on all social platforms at Marcus the Knight. That's Marcus, and then Knight, Knight, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Threads. I'm literally everywhere.
Perfect. Well, we'll send them your way, guys. Anybody that's been listening and's enjoyed hearing from Marcus, learning from him, go give him a follow, keep following what he's doing, and just see the impact he continues to have. Marcus, thank you for coming on here, and to everybody listening, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Stop the recording here.